大家好，我是 Jenny， 欢迎来到沉思者 J。1998年的夏天，美国司法部正式起诉一家科技公司，罪名是垄断，是非法独占市场。被告的名字叫微软，而微软背后那个人，头顶圆框眼镜，穿着格子毛衣，坐在国会听证席上的那个人，就是比尔·盖茨。那一年，他是全球最富有的人，个人财富超过美国国内生产总值的一个百分比。媒体把他描绘成垄断资本主义的象征，批评者说他是贪婪的，说他是无情的竞争机器，说他不择手段消灭竞争对手。但是，故事到这里并没有结束。25年后的今天，比尔·盖茨的名字出现在完全不同的地方：非洲农村的诊所里，印度小村庄的厕所工程旁，孟加拉国疫苗接种计划的文件上。他的名字代表的不再是垄断，而是史上规模最大的私人慈善行动。这究竟是怎么发生的？这个转型是真实的觉醒，还是一场精心设计的公关操作？这个问题至今仍然争议不断。今天我们就来好好说说这个故事。比尔·盖茨，全名威廉·亨利·盖茨三世，1955年10月28日，出生在美国华盛顿州西雅图市。他出生的家庭并不普通，父亲威廉·盖茨二世是一位成功的律师，母亲玛丽·麦克斯韦尔·盖茨是慈善活动家，同时也是多家公司的董事会成员。外祖父是国家银行的行长。换句话说，比尔·盖茨从来不是草根出身，他出生在一个富裕的专业阶层家庭，从小接受精英教育，父母对他期待极高。小时候的比尔·盖茨有一个让父母头疼的特质，就是过度竞争。在家庭棋盘游戏里输了，他会大发脾气。他的妈妈后来说，比尔从来不知道怎么输，赢对他来说是唯一的选项。12岁的时候，他进入了西雅图的湖滨学校读书，这是一所精英私立学校，学费昂贵，学生大多来自富裕家庭。就在这所学校里，他第一次接触到电脑，那是1968年，个人电脑还不存在。湖滨学校的家长委员会凑钱买了一台分时电脑终端机，这在当时的美国中学是极其罕见的。比尔·盖茨被迷住了，他和同学保罗·艾伦几乎每天都泡在电脑室里。后来他们开始找各种办法，取得额外的上机时间，包括利用系统漏洞，免费使用电脑。是的，史上最富有的科技企业家之一，少年时代的第一个重要技能是骇客。高中时代他开始赚钱了，他和保罗·艾伦一起创办了一家小公司，叫做交通数据公司。他们写了一个程式，用来分析西雅图的交通流量数据，卖给当地政府，赚了大约2万美元。那一年他才15岁。1973年，比尔·盖茨以优异的成绩考进哈佛大学，他的 SAT 数学考了800分满分，语文也高达700多分。进哈佛是顺理成章的事。在哈佛，他最喜欢的事是打牌，扑克牌。他把这当作一种数学训练，计算概率，读懂对手。他在宿舍里的牌局声名远播。他也开始读电脑科学的课，但同时选修了数学和法律，因为他的家人都认为他应该去当律师。但是命运在1974年发生了改变。那一年1月，一本叫做《大众电子》的杂志封面上出现了一台电脑，名字叫做 Altair 8800，这是世界上第一台商业个人电脑套件。比尔·盖茨和保罗·艾伦看到这个封面的时候，他们知道时代来了。他们立刻联系了 Altair 的制造商，谎称他们已经写好了一个 Basic 语言程式，可以在这台电脑上运行。事实上他们根本还没开始写，他们用了8个星期，不眠不休地写程式。当他们把程式交给制造商的时候，那是第一次在真正的 Altair 电脑上运行，居然完美成功。这就是微软最早的产品。1975年，比尔·盖茨从哈佛退学，和保罗· 艾伦一起在新墨西哥州的阿尔伯克基市正式创办了微软公司。他当时19岁，这个决定让他的父母大为震惊。但比尔·盖茨说了一句话：如果事情不顺利，他可以随时回哈佛念完学位。事情当然顺利了。微软最关键的转折点发生在1980年。那一年，电脑巨头 IBM 正在开发个人电脑，他们找上微软，希望微软能提供一套作业系统。比尔·盖茨做了一个大胆到近乎荒唐的决定，他先答应了 IBM， 然后再去找作业系统。他花了$75,000，从另一家公司买下了一套叫做 QDOS 的作业系统，然后把它改良，命名为 MS-DOS， 授权给 IBM 使用。但是关键在这里，他没有把版权卖给 IBM， 他只是授权，这意味着他可以把同样的系统卖给任何其他电脑制造商。这个决定改变了世界。IBM 的个人电脑大卖，然后几十家厂商开始生产相容机，全部都需要购买 MS-DOS 授权。微软就这样变成了电脑软体世界的基础设施供应商。后来的故事大家都知道了， Windows 作业系统， Office 办公软体，一个接着一个。微软不只是一家公司，它变成了整个个人电脑时代的空气。到了1993年，微软的 Windows 已经占据了全球桌上电脑作业系统市场超过90%。这不是竞争，这是统治。然后网络时代来了。1993年，网景公司推出了第一个广受使用的网页浏览器，用户数量爆炸性增长。微软发现，如果人们都在浏览器上工作，那微软的 Windows 就会变得不重要了。比尔·盖茨决定消灭这个威胁。他在1995年推出了 Internet Explorer， 然后做了一件后来让他上法庭的事。他要求所有电脑制造商，如果想安装 Windows， 就必须同时把 Internet Explorer 设为默认浏览器，并且不得宣传或推广竞争对手的浏览器。这就是著名的浏览器大战。网景公司被彻底打垮，市场占有率从超过90%跌到不足1%。但是美国司法部也来了。1998年，美国司法部和20个州联合起诉微软，指控其垄断个人电脑作业系统市场，并非法利用这种垄断地位打压竞争对手。审判持续了多年，最后达成和解。微软没有被拆分，但是受到了严格的限制。这场官司让比尔·盖茨的个人形象受到了严重损伤。一个冰冷的，只追求胜利的，不惜一切手段的商业机器，这是很多人对他的印象。就在这个节骨眼，另一个故事开始了。2008年，比尔·盖茨正式卸任微软首席执行官，把公司的日常运营完全交给了史蒂夫·鲍尔默。他要去做别的事情了。早在2000年，比尔·盖茨和妻子梅琳达就已经成立了比尔及梅琳达·盖茨基金会。现在这个基金会已经成为世界上最大的私人慈善基金会。让我告诉你它的规模。盖茨基金会迄今已捐出超过500亿美元，目前资产超过700亿美元，每年支出超过60亿美元，员工超过1600人，工作覆盖全球130多个国家和地区。这些数字是什么概念？世界卫生组织整个年度预算大约是30亿美元。盖茨基金会每年花的钱是世界卫生组织的2倍。他们具体在做什么？最重要的一块是全球卫生。盖茨基金会是全球对抗疟疾行动的最大资助者。疟疾每年夺走超过60万人的生命，其中大部分是非洲的儿童。基金会资助研发新型疟疾疫苗，资助生产和分发杀虫剂蚊帐，资助训练当地卫生工作者。结果是什么？从2000年到2019年，全球疟疾死亡率下降了接近60%。当然这不是盖茨基金会一家的功劳，但他们的贡献是不可忽视的。脊髓灰质炎就是小儿麻痹症，这个疾病曾经每年让数十万儿童终身残疾。盖茨基金会投入了超过40亿美元，在全球推动消灭小儿麻痹症的行动。今天全世界只剩下2个国家， 仍然存在野生型小儿麻痹病毒，是阿富汗和巴基斯坦从125个国家缩减到2个，这是人类卫生史上的奇迹之一。另一块重要工作是厕所革命，这个听起来可能有些奇怪，但是比尔·盖茨把它视为全球卫生最被忽视的领域。全球有25亿人没有安全的卫生设施，每年有近100万5岁以下儿童死于腹泻相关疾病。追根溯源，很多都是因为厕所和饮水污染。盖茨基金会发起了重新发明厕所的挑战，资助全球多所大学和研究机构，开发不需要接入水电管网的新型厕所技术，并且在南亚和非洲农村地区大规模推广。他自己在演讲台上拿着一罐人类粪便说，这里面有约20万种细菌，超过200种病毒和寄生虫，它是很多疾病的根源，我们需要解决它。这就是盖茨基金会工作的缩影，不回避肮脏的问题，用钱和科学去解决。教育领域也是重要战场。在美国，盖茨基金会投入了数十亿美元，试图改革公立学校教育，包括资助小班制教学、资助特许学校的实验，以及推动共同核心课程标准。但是教育改革的结果非常复杂。比尔·盖茨自己后来也承认，他们在美国教育改革上花了几十亿美元，但是成效并不令人满意。这是他罕见的承认失败的一次。农业发展在非洲也是重点，基金会资助非洲小农户改良种子和农业技术，目标是提高粮食产量，让非洲农村脱贫。比尔·盖茨还在气候领域大举投资，他成立了突破能源风险投资基金，投入超过20亿美元，支持清洁能源的研发，包括新一代核电技术、氢能源以及直接空气碳捕捉技术。他认为气候问题需要技术突破，而不只是行为改变。这个观点在环保界引起了很多争议，我们后面还会谈到。当然，这么大规模的慈善行动，不可能没有争议。第一个争议是慈善资本主义的问题。批评者指出，盖茨基金会虽然做了很多好事，但它的运作方式是单向的。基金会决定什么重要，基金会决定怎么解决，社会国家和社区几乎没有话语权。社会学家安娜·费尔德曼把这称为慈善殖民主义。一个西方富人用他的钱和他的逻辑，在发展中国家推行他认为正确的解决方案，而不去问当地人他们真正需要什么。这个批评有一定的道理。比尔·盖茨本人也在近年开始调整，更多的强调当地主导，但批评者说这种调整来得太慢，也太表面。第二个争议是利益冲突的问题。盖茨基金会持有大量上市公司股票，这些公司有些是制药公司，有些是农业公司，而基金会同时资助和影响全球医疗和农业政策。当盖茨基金会推广某种新型疫苗的时候，那家疫苗制造商是否刚好也是基金会的投资标的？这种利益冲突是否影响了基金会的资助决策？盖茨基金会的回应是，他们有严格的防火墙，投资部门和资助部门是分开的，但批评者认为这个解释不够有说服力。第三个争议是民主问责的问题。一个私人基金会拥有超过一个主权国家卫生部的预算，但是它不需要向任何选民负责，不需要向任何国会负责，只需要向它的创办人负责。政治学家认为这是一个根本性的问题。全球卫生政策的走向不应该由一个没有民主授权的私人机构决定，不论它的出发点多么好。比尔·盖茨对这个批评的回应是，政府失灵了。在很多最紧迫的全球问题上，政府要么行动太慢，要么根本不行动。私人资金填补了这个空缺，这是现实。这个对话本身就揭示了我们这个时代的深层矛盾：私人财富和公共责任之间的张力，效率和民主之间的取舍。还有一个更私人的争议。2021年，比尔·盖茨和梅琳达·盖茨宣布离婚。他们在一起了27年。梅琳达后来在公开场合暗示， 他对婚姻中的一些事情感到失望。外界猜测包括比尔·盖茨和杰佛瑞·爱普斯坦的关系。杰佛瑞·爱普斯坦是臭名昭著的性犯罪者，比尔·盖茨曾多次与他见面，尽管他说这些见面是为了讨论慈善捐款，但这个关系在舆论上对他造成了相当大的伤害。盖茨说他对这段关系感到后悔，见他是一个错误。离婚之后，盖茨基金会的运作也受到影响。梅琳达后来完全退出了盖茨基金会，另立门户，成立了自己的慈善机构。这个故事让很多人对比尔·盖茨的慈善事业更加复杂的看待。一个人可以在一方面做出伟大的贡献，同时在另一方面暴露出严重的判断缺陷。人的复杂性就在这里。让我们回到那个最根本的问题：比尔·盖茨的转型是真实的觉醒吗？还是一场精心设计的公关救赎？我认为这个问题本身就设错了，因为他预设了动机必须是纯粹的，才能让行动有价值。事实上，动机往往是复杂的。比尔·盖茨在接受采访时说过，他的慈善工作部分是受到了华伦·巴菲特的影响，部分是因为他读了一篇关于发展中国家儿童死亡率的文章，感到震惊。他问自己，为什么这些孩子的命比美国孩子的命不值钱？这个问题促使他开始行动。同时，他的确从慈善工作中得到了声誉上的好处，从垄断者到慈善家的形象转换，改善了他在公众心目中的形象。这个利益是真实的，但是一个动机复杂的行动，如果它的结果是好的，那它仍然是有价值的行动。比尔·盖茨可能在微软时代确实做了很多不当的事，垄断行为伤害了竞争，伤害了创新，伤害了消费者，这是真实的。但是他后来用那些财富做的事情，让几百万个孩子活了下来，这也是真实的。这两件事可以同时为真。这个人既是垄断者，也是救命的人。这让我想起了东方哲学里一个古老的智慧，易经说，物极必反，阴极生阳，最黑暗的地方，往往就是光开始出现的地方。一个人在追求财富和权力的极致之后，转过身来，面对人类最根本的苦难，这不是不可能的。而且，不论动机如何，比尔·盖茨用行动说明了一件事：人的第二章可以和第一章完全不同。现在的比尔·盖茨每天仍然大量阅读，每年读超过50本书。他经营一个叫做盖茨笔记的部落格，分享他读的书，他对全球问题的思考，以及他认为人类面临的最大挑战。他说，如果他没有在微软工作的那段历史，他不会有现在的能力和资源去解决这些问题。微软塑造了他的思维方式，那就是找到规模化的解决方案，找到可以复制和推广的方法，然后全力执行。这个思维方式，他带到了慈善工作里。有人问他，如果你可以重来一次，你会有所不同吗？他说，在商业竞争上，我可能会更仁慈一些，但是我不后悔那些基本的决定。那些决定让微软成为了微软。这是一个很诚实的回答，没有伪装，没有假装悔恨。比尔·盖茨的故事告诉我们，伟大和缺陷可以共存在同一个人身上。判断一个人，不能只看他最好的一面，也不能只看他最坏的一面，要看他的整体，要看他在不同时间、不同处境下做出的选择。当财富积累到极致，有人选择继续追求更多，有人选择把它转化成对世界的贡献。比尔·盖茨选择了后者，不论他的动机有多少层，不论他的方法有多少争议。那些活下来的孩子是真实的，那些被消灭的疾病是真实的，那些走出贫困的农村家庭是真实的。所以今天的故事，我想用这样一句话结尾：真正重要的不是你用什么方式积累了财富，而是当你拥有的已经远远超过你所需要的时候，你选择做什么？比尔·盖茨选择了用它去试图让世界少一点苦难。这个选择值得被记录。 值得被讨论，也值得被我们每一个人思考。如果是你，你会怎么选？我们下次见咯。Hello everyone, I am Jenny. Welcome to Thinker J. It was the summer of 1998. The United States Department of Justice filed a formal lawsuit against a technology company. The charge was monopoly, illegal domination of the market. The defendant was called Microsoft. And the man behind Microsoft, wearing round-framed glasses, dressed in a plaid sweater, sitting in the congressional hearing room. That man was Bill Gates. That year, he was the wealthiest person on earth. His personal fortune exceeded 1% of the entire U.S. gross domestic product. The media portrayed him as a symbol of monopoly capitalism. Critics said he was greedy. They said he was a ruthless competitive machine. They said he would do whatever it took to destroy his competitors. But the story did not end there. 25 years later today, the name Bill Gates appears in completely different places. In clinics in rural Africa, beside sanitation projects in small Indian villages, on vaccination program documents in Bangladesh. His name no longer represents monopoly. It represents the largest private philanthropic effort in human history. How did this happen? Is this transformation a genuine awakening? Or is it a carefully designed public relations campaign? This question remains deeply contested to this day. Today we are going to tell this story properly. Bill Gates. Full name William Henry Gates III. Born on October 28, 1955. In Seattle, Washington, in the United States. The family he was born into was not ordinary. His father William Gates II was a successful lawyer. His mother Mary Maxwell Gates was a philanthropist. She also served on the boards of several major companies. His maternal grandfather was the president of a national bank. In other words, Bill Gates never came from humble origins. He was born into a wealthy professional class family. He received elite education from childhood. His parents held extremely high expectations for him. Young Bill Gates had a trait that gave his parents headaches. He was excessively competitive. When he lost at board games he would throw a tantrum. His mother later recalled. Bill never learned how to lose. Winning was the only option for him. At age 12, he entered Lakeside School in Seattle. This was an elite private school. Expensive to attend. Most students came from wealthy families. It was at this school that he touched a computer for the first time. The year was 1968. Personal computers did not yet exist. The Parent-Teacher Association at Lakeside School pooled money together to buy a time-sharing computer terminal. This was extraordinarily rare for an American middle school at the time. Bill Gates was captivated. He and his classmate Paul Allen spent almost every day in the computer room. Later they began finding every possible way to get extra time on the machine, including exploiting system vulnerabilities, to use the computer for free. Yes, one of the wealthiest technology entrepreneurs in history had as his first important teenage skill hacking. He started making money in high school. He and Paul Allen co-founded a small company together called Trafodata. They wrote a program to analyze traffic flow data in Seattle and sold it to the local government, earning approximately $20,000. He was only 15 years old at the time. In 1973, Bill Gates was admitted to Harvard University with outstanding grades. He scored a perfect 800 on the math SAT and over 700 on the verbal section. Getting into Harvard was a natural outcome. At Harvard, his favorite activity was playing cards. Poker. He treated it as a form of mathematical training, calculating probabilities, reading opponents. He became well known for the card games in his dormitory. He also took computer science courses, but simultaneously studied mathematics and law, because his family believed he should become a lawyer. But fate shifted in 1974. In January of that year, the cover of a magazine called Popular Electronics featured a computer named the Altair 8800. This was the world's first commercially available personal computer kit. When Bill Gates and Paul Allen saw that cover, they knew the era had arrived. They immediately contacted the manufacturer of the Altair and claimed they had already written a basic language program that could run on this computer. In truth, they had not even begun writing it. They spent 8 weeks working through the nights without rest. When they finally delivered the program to the manufacturer, it ran on an actual Altair computer for the very first time. And it worked perfectly. This was the earliest product of Microsoft. In 1975, Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard. Together with Paul Allen he moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. and formally founded Microsoft. He was 19 years old. This decision shocked his parents deeply. But Bill Gates said something that has become famous. If things did not go well, he could always return to Harvard and finish his degree. Things went well, of course. The most pivotal turning point for Microsoft came in 1980. That year, the computing giant IBM was developing a personal computer. They approached Microsoft, hoping Microsoft could provide an operating system. Bill Gates made a decision that was bold to the point of being audacious. He agreed to IBM first, then went looking for an operating system afterward. He paid $75,000 to purchase an operating system called QDOS from another company. He improved it, renamed it MS-DOS, and licensed it to IBM. But here is the critical detail. He did not sell the copyright to IBM. He only licensed it. This meant he could sell the same system to any other computer manufacturer. This decision changed the world. IBM personal computers sold enormously well. Then dozens of manufacturers began producing compatible machines. All of them needed to purchase an MS-DOS license. Microsoft thus became the infrastructure supplier of the entire personal computer software world. The rest of the story is well known. Windows operating system, Office productivity software, one after another. Microsoft was not just a company. It became the heir of the entire personal computer era. By 1993, Windows already occupied more than 90% of the global desktop operating system market. This was not competition. This was domination. Then the Internet age arrived. In 1993, Netscape launched the first widely adopted web browser. User numbers grew explosively. Microsoft realized, if people were doing all their work inside a browser, then Windows would become irrelevant. Bill Gates decided to eliminate this threat. He launched Internet Explorer in 1995. Then did something that eventually brought him to court. He required all computer manufacturers that if they wanted to install Windows, they must also set Internet Explorer as the default browser, and must not promote or advertise competing browsers. This became the famous browser wars. Netscape was completely crushed. Its market share fell from over 90% to less than 10%. But the Department of Justice arrived as well. In 1998, the U.S. Department of Justice and 20 states jointly sued Microsoft, alleging monopolization of the personal computer operating system market, and the illegal use of that monopoly position to suppress competitors. The trial continued for years, eventually ending in a settlement. Microsoft was not broken up, but it faced significant restrictions. The lawsuit severely damaged the personal image of Bill Gates, a cold, victory-obsessed, by any means necessary business machine. This was how many people came to see him. And then at precisely this moment, another story began. In 2008, Bill Gates formally stepped down as CEO of Microsoft. He handed over day-to-day operations entirely to Steve Ballmer. He was going to do something else now. As early as 2000, Bill Gates and his wife Melinda had already established the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. By now this foundation had become the largest private charitable foundation in the world. Let me tell you the scale of it. The Gates Foundation has donated more than $50 billion to date. Current assets exceed $70 billion. Annual spending exceeds $6 billion. Staff number over 1,600 people. Work covers more than 130 countries and territories worldwide. What does this mean in context? The entire annual budget of the World Health Organization is approximately $3 billion. The Gates Foundation spends twice as much per year as the WHO. What are they actually doing? The most important area is global health. The Gates Foundation is the largest funder of global anti-malaria efforts. Malaria kills more than 600,000 people each year. The majority are children in Africa. The foundation funds the development of new malaria vaccines, funds the production and distribution of insecticide-treated bed nets, funds the training of local health workers. What are the results? From 2000 to 2019, global malaria mortality declined by nearly 60%. This is not solely the work of the Gates Foundation, but their contribution is impossible to ignore. Polio is short for poliomyelitis. This disease once permanently disabled hundreds of thousands of children every year. The Gates Foundation has invested more than $4 billion to drive a global campaign to eradicate polio. Today only 2 countries in the entire world still have wild-type polio virus circulating. Those countries are Afghanistan and Pakistan, reduced from 125 countries down to 2. This is one of the miracles of human public health history. Another important area of work is sanitation. This might sound unusual, but Bill Gates regards it as the most neglected area of global health. 2.5 billion people worldwide lack access to safe sanitation facilities. Nearly 1 million children under age 5 die each year from diarrhea-related diseases. Tracing this back to its roots, much of it stems from contaminated toilets and drinking water. The Gates Foundation launched the Reinvent the Toilet Challenge, funding universities and research institutions worldwide to develop new toilet technologies that require no connection to electricity or water infrastructure, and deploying them at large scale in rural South Asia and Africa. He himself stood at a podium holding a jar of human feces and said, "This jar contains roughly 200,000 kinds of bacteria, more than 200 types of viruses, and parasites. It is the source of many diseases. We need to solve this." This is the essence of the Gates Foundation approach. Never flinching from the dirty problems, using money and science to fix them. Education is another major battleground. In the United States, the Gates Foundation has invested tens of billions of dollars, attempting to reform public school education, including funding smaller class sizes, funding experiments with charter schools, and promoting the Common Core curriculum standards. But the results of education reform have been highly complex. Bill Gates himself later acknowledged, "They spent several $billion on U.S. education reform, and the results were not satisfying." This was one of the rare occasions when he publicly admitted failure. Agricultural development in Africa is another priority. The foundation supports smallholder farmers across Africa, improving seeds and agricultural technology, with the goal of increasing crop yields and helping African rural families escape poverty. Bill Gates has also made major investments in climate solutions. He established Breakthrough Energy Ventures, committing more than $2 billion to support clean energy research and development, including next-generation nuclear technology, hydrogen energy, and direct air carbon capture technology. He believes climate change requires technological breakthroughs, not just behavioral change. This view has generated considerable debate in environmental circles. We will come back to this shortly. Of course, a philanthropic operation of this scale could not exist without controversy. The first controversy concerns the problem of philanthropic capitalism. Critics point out that while the Gates Foundation does much good, its operating model is one-directional. The foundation decides what matters. The foundation decides how to solve it. The recipient countries and communities have almost no voice. Sociologist Ananya Bhattacharya has described this as philanthropic colonialism. A wealthy Westerner, using his money and his logic to implement his preferred solutions in developing countries, without asking local people what they actually need. This criticism holds some merit. Bill Gates himself has in recent years begun adjusting, placing more emphasis on local leadership. But critics say this shift is too slow and too superficial. The second controversy is the problem of conflicts of interest. The Gates Foundation holds substantial stakes in publicly traded companies. Some of these are pharmaceutical companies, some are agricultural companies, and the foundation simultaneously funds and influences global health and agriculture policy. Critics ask, when the Gates Foundation promotes a particular new vaccine, is the vaccine manufacturer perhaps also one of the foundation investments? Could this conflict of interest be affecting the foundation grant decisions? The Gates Foundation responds that they maintain strict firewalls. The investment division and the grant-making division are separate. But critics find this explanation insufficient. The third controversy is the problem of democratic accountability. A private foundation that commands a budget larger than the health ministry of many sovereign nations, but is accountable to no voters, accountable to no parliament, answerable only to its founder. Political scientists argue this is a fundamental problem. The direction of global health policy should not be determined by a private organization with no democratic mandate, no matter how good its intentions. Bill Gates responds to this criticism by saying, governments have failed on many of the most urgent global problems. Governments either move too slowly, or they do not move at all. Private funding fills this gap. That is the reality. This conversation itself reveals the deep contradictions of our era. The tension between private wealth and public responsibility. The trade-off between efficiency and democracy. There is also a more personal controversy. In 2021, Bill Gates and Melinda Gates announced their divorce. They had been together for 27 years. Melinda later implied in public comments that she was disappointed by certain things in the marriage. Speculation outside the couple included the relationship between Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was an infamous convicted sex offender. Bill Gates had met with him on multiple occasions. Although he says these meetings were about discussing charitable donations, this association caused him considerable reputational damage in public opinion. Gates said he regretted the relationship. Meeting him was a mistake. After the divorce, the operations of the Gates Foundation were also affected. Melinda eventually withdrew entirely from the Gates Foundation and established her own separate philanthropic organization. This episode led many people to view the charitable work of Bill Gates with even greater complexity. A person can make extraordinary contributions in one area, while simultaneously demonstrating serious failures of judgment in another. This is where human complexity lives. Let us return to the most fundamental question. Is the transformation of Bill Gates a genuine awakening, or a carefully orchestrated public relations redemption? I believe this question is itself framed incorrectly, because it assumes that motivation must be pure for an action to have value. The truth is that motivation is usually complex. Bill Gates has said in interviews that his philanthropic work was partly influenced by Warren Buffett, and partly because he read an article about child mortality rates in developing countries. He was shocked. He asked himself, why are the lives of these children worth less than the lives of American children? This question drove him to act. At the same time, he has genuinely benefited in terms of reputation from his philanthropic work. The image transformation from monopolist to philanthropist has significantly improved how the public perceives him. This benefit is real. But an action with complex motivations, if its outcomes are good, is still a valuable action. Bill Gates may have done much that was wrong during the Microsoft era. Monopolistic behavior harmed competition, harmed innovation, harmed consumers. This is real. But what he later did with that wealth saved the lives of millions of children. This is also real. Both things can be true simultaneously. This person was both a monopolist and someone who saved lives. This reminds me of an ancient piece of wisdom from Eastern philosophy. The I Ching teaches that extremes always reverse, that out of the deepest yin comes the birth of yang. The darkest place is often where light begins to appear. A person who has pursued wealth and power to their extremes then turns around and faces the most fundamental suffering of humanity. This is not impossible. And regardless of motivation, Bill Gates has demonstrated something through his actions. The second chapter of a life can be completely different from the first. Today Bill Gates still reads voraciously, more than 50 books each year. He runs a blog called Gates Notes, where he shares the books he reads, his thinking on global problems, and what he believes are the greatest challenges facing humanity. He says that without the years he spent building Microsoft, he would not have the capability and resources to tackle these problems now. Microsoft shaped his way of thinking, which is to find solutions that scale, find methods that can be replicated and deployed widely, then execute with full force. He brought this way of thinking into his philanthropic work. Someone once asked him, if you could start over, would you do things differently? He said, in terms of business competition, I might have been somewhat kinder, but I do not regret the fundamental decisions. Those decisions made Microsoft what it became. This is a remarkably honest answer. No pretense. No performative regret. The story of Bill Gates tells us that greatness and flaws can coexist within the same person. When judging a person, we cannot only look at their best side, nor can we only look at their worst. We must see them whole. We must look at the choices they made at different times, under different circumstances. When wealth accumulates to its extreme, some people choose to pursue even more. Others choose to convert it into contributions to the world. Bill Gates chose the latter. Regardless of how many layers his motivation contains, regardless of how much debate surrounds his methods, the children who lived are real. The diseases that were eliminated are real. The rural families who found their way out of poverty are real. So I want to end today with this thought. What truly matters is not how you accumulated your wealth. What matters is that when you possess far more than you could ever need, you choose what to do with it. Bill Gates chose to use it to try to bring a little less suffering into the world. That choice is worth recording, worth discussing, and worth each one of us reflecting on. If it were you, what would you choose? See you next time.